Time,
I see. Okay.
time being 9:01, I call the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Justin, second by Judy. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. The minutes. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion, oh, you want to go?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Dana,
I'll second
second
it.
by Judy. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion is carried. Public comment period. Would anyone like to address the board at this time?
I would. Commissioners, good morning. As a veteran of a lot of public hearings and meetings over the last 40 years, I'd like to make some friendly suggestions on how the meeting is handled tomorrow, and I hope you'll take them in good faith. I can assure you, without any doubt, that this location is going to be way too small for the number of people who turn out. So I'd like to urge you to have it over at the Criminal Justice Center basement. I'd also like to advocate for 3 minutes instead of 2 minutes. 2 minutes is just inherently too short. People are just automatically going to exceed that time. Whereas 3 minutes, I think, fits the speech patterns of a lot more people. And I would hope, given that a lot of people are really interested in this issue, that you've put a lot of effort into it over the last couple of years, that you would think it's really important to let people be heard for 3 minutes instead of 2 on this issue. Then you can save a little bit of time by what I would call lining up instead of signing up. There's really no reason for people to have to sign up to speak. On the other hand, if you had a podium, let's say right here, and you at the beginning, Steve, suggested to people that there always be 3 or 4 people lined up, you could save that 25 or 30 seconds when somebody's name is called out and everybody in the room sits and waits for that person to come up to the podium. Robin and I are going to illustrate that when I'm done here. And it would also allow people, there's going to be a lot of people who come here with time constraints. And if they sign up, they're kind of locked into that period when they're called to testify. On the other hand, if you always have 2 or 3 people lined up here, those people who have to get someplace, and especially because it's Ash Wednesday, can come up early on. And some of us who are veterans of this kind of stuff can sit here until last. No problem that way. And finally, I'd like to encourage you to get rid of that obnoxious buzzer that went off last week. It sounds like something for a weekday television game show, frankly, and it's just, you know, a lot of the people who are going to come and testify don't do this like we do regularly, and it's really going to throw
There it goes.
There it goes.
case in point. So, listen, I'm offering these in a good spirit. I hope you'll consider them. And Robin and I are going to illustrate right now why you can save 30 seconds on every speaker. Thank you, Commissioners.
Yeah, thanks, Ken.
Good morning, Commissioners. As you may know, I'm from California. I'm not from here. I chose to live in Minnesota. I like the natural beauty. I grew up near the beautiful California coastline. Went to the beach often. And when I was a kid, there was a place near the coast called the Buffalo Ranch. There were buffalo, goats, and various other petting animals and a small train that we would ride. And it closed when I was about 5 or 6 years old, and yet I still have great memories of it. That's how impressed I was as a small child. The buildings, after they closed it, remained, and it was turned into office space called Urbanus Square. I was too young to realize that that was a sign of things to come. Over the time, the coastline became invisible as tall buildings were erected. And these were mostly apartments and condominiums, and they were only for the wealthy because it was on the coastline. It was, you had this beautiful view of the Pacific Ocean. And my point is that only the wealthy could now see the ocean from the Pacific Coast Highway, and that's true today if you take a drive down it. And it was really sad to most of us who didn't benefit one iota from that development. And I tell you this story because if you decide to approve the draft mineral extraction ordinance as greatly changed by the Planning Commission, only the wealthy will benefit. The rest of the county residents will not benefit one iota. In fact, many of us will lose greatly. And as a person concerned about others, that really saddens me. Thank you for your time.
Yvonne Krogstad, Caledonia Township. One of the goals of the study committee in drafting the new ordinance was to get all the current mines under control, and they also want to limit the volumes of material removed. According to the current ordinance 0110.2708 subdivision 1, any, which is all inclusive, any mine operation legally commenced prior to the enactment of this ordinance that does not have an approved reclamation plan shall submit a plan to the planning agency within 5 years, which was originally adopted in 2009. The 5 years ended last year, so have all 100 plus mines submitted a reclamation plan. Upon failure to comply, the zoning administrator shall certify non-compliance to the commissioners who would proceed with handling the violation. Have you received a list of those out of compliance? It does no good to have an ordinance in place when nothing is done to enforce it. If the current ordinance were enforced, most, if not all, mines would have lost their non-conforming status and would now have to go through the application process, so the mines should already be under control. The volume of 60,000 cubic yards per year per site would mean at least 19 trucks per day for a 12-yard load, loaded when leaving, another trip returning, 5 days a week, all year long. Think about living near the noise and dust, plus the damage to roads for which we would pay. Let's keep the present ordinance, thereby not affecting our current operators, and adopt an amendment to prohibit all silica sand mining as proposed by Commissioner Chomey. Our county attorney reviewed it, and he presented it to you, for which he was criticized. Most of you making the decision won't be affected by the results of your actions. Please listen to your constituents and do what most residents want. Another thought, our county attorney indicated it's likely the county would be sued. If that happens, I think most residents would rather pay more taxes to keep this destructive industry out of the county than to live with consequences of allowing them in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Brian Van Gorp. Why is a ban the only reasonable course of action at this point? Well, I would say two big reasons in it right off the bat. The first is you're worried about getting sued. Obviously, that is not going to be a cost to the county. It's going to be paid for by the Minnesota County's Insurance Trust. But secondly, you're much more likely to lose a lawsuit with trying to defend arbitrary things like a 60,000 yard limit than you will a ban, which is not arbitrary and has actual reasons to defend it. Secondly, regulation means nothing if you don't have an intent and a way to enforce it. The 60,000 yard limit, who's going to monitor that? And if you don't monitor it, what does it mean? You're just talking into the wind. Now, what has frac sand mining meant to the county so far? We spent about $200,000 so far, and the first mine hasn't opened yet. There's been study groups, ordinance writing groups, lawsuits, legal fees, investigations of employees for inappropriate conduct, all at taxpayer expense. Soon the cost of road repairs will start rolling in. Now, this ordinance is written such that no fees will be charged to most of these miners. Also, the ordinance is written so that there's a 20-acre limit so that an EAW won't have to be done on any of these mines. But you forget, there's still a catch. There's phased and connected impacts, and an EAW and an EIS may still be necessary because of the cumulative impacts of multiple mines. We've already seen that illustrated. Now, logic dictates that a permit generated by an invalid process cannot be assumed to be valid. There's been a lot of invalid process by planning and zoning. The Erickson mine permit, the continued operation of non-conforming mines, failing to bring the mines into compliance with current standards over the last 5 years, and now this ordinance are all good examples of invalid processes by planning and zoning. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Corey Baker, Yucatan Township. wish I could tell you something you haven't heard already. What have we learned over the past 3 years? We learned that Houston County can and will survive without industrial sand mining. My concerns, being a neighbor to the first proposed sand mine, were initially about the health and safety of my children and my property values and what the removal of 10,000, 60,000, or even 2 million yards would do to the bluffs that surround my property. They drove a wedge in our small little community of neighbors, and I would hate to see that happen throughout the county if more mines that are proposed are allowed to exist. Now is the time to incorporate an industrial silica sand mining ban into our county ordinance and prohibit it from happening in Houston County. Make it clear to residents that their health and safety and welfare come first. When it comes down to it, this is about people, not about the mining companies, not about the sand. It's about our children and the future generations to come. Thank you.
Since this is the season of passion, I thought I'd bring you my cross to bear. Bruce Chemical from Caledonia, Minnesota. I went to a big box store last year. I had a little patio project, just right in front of my garden hose. Doesn't get dirty there. So I put a little paper block down, and I wanted to bind the block together. And so I just picked up a bag of sand. And here's what it says, and I'll spare you having to come up and read this yourself, but I'll leave it here if you'd like to. So I made a nice great big thing here, and if you want to look at that, just to verify what I'm reading. Caution, this product may contain free silica. Prolonged inhalation may cause delayed lung injury, silicosis. Following applicable safety and health standards for crystalline silica quartz, keep out of the reach of children. I read the label, I held my breath, and I stayed upwind, so I didn't get any fugitive dust. It was just a little spot. The thing about this is, it's a disclaimer. So if I would have ripped open 5,000 bags of this stuff on a windy day and stayed downwind and got silicosis and saved the label and took it to the company with my COPD pack on my back, guess what they would have said to me? Tough luck, Bruce.
I just want to remind you all that I did send each one of you an email about the derailment and explosion of the train yesterday in West Virginia, I think it was West Virginia or Virginia, had just suffered another train derailment a few months back. And just a couple of days before yesterday's derailment and explosion, there was a derailment in North Ontario, and I think both of these trains were carrying Bakken crude. So, I mean, and pipelines, the largest pipeline accident in history happened up in North Dakota, 3 million gallons before they even bothered to discover this leak. And it was only like less than 2 years old. A new pipeline, 3 million gallons. So pipelines aren't safe. Trains aren't safe, trucking isn't safe. There is no way to move fossil fuels in any safe manner, not even up out of a bore pipe out of the ground. This stuff is not good for this planet, and we need to get off of fossil fuels.
Okay, time is 9:15. We should proceed with our meeting. I'll give you, go ahead.
I'll
Give you
probably
two.
take less than 3 minutes. Actually, I wasn't going to talk about it, but if I could ditto on that West Virginia event you just saw last night. There's a group in Wisconsin, La Crosse, called CARS, and if you would like to meet with them, they're extremely sophisticated, and your legislators, Walz, Baldwin, Kine, they're writing letters and stuff. There's some very serious things on that, West Virginia. That could happen here. I sent you an email. You've read it. If you would like at some point to hear more, I spent 2 hours sitting with Sheriff Inglet discussing that, and he was kind of shocked and said, God, Jeremy, you know a lot about this. I said, actually, I don't, but I'm listening to others. So if you would like it sometime to meet with CARS or find out more about that, this is something that, as I have written in my email, should be on your agenda. All of your first responders are underprepared, we're under-equipped, under-trained, and they're all, without exception, very worried. I'm worried about it. I'd like to see anybody who isn't, and I'm sure you're worried about it too. If you research it, it'll scare you blue. Commissioner Kajomi and Justin recommended a parallel ordinance of some sort a while back, and I know the good new attorney here was researching some of that. I hope that you get a chance to look at that, and I'll tell you why. In the research committee meetings that I started attending a few months ago, and maybe something I know that Commissioner Justin served very well on there, and Commissioner Walters, and I thank you for looking at those things in research. And in there was even a discussion at one point. Commissioner Walters made a very good recommendation. Let's maybe have some listening sessions. And I don't think I see the director of the P&Z. Is Mr. Griffin in here? No, he should be in here. I'll make him an imaginary to Mr. Griffin, because I like pointing at Griffin. I don't know why. But he seemed to often, I noticed in those meetings, would sort of push his feelings around on what, I'll finish, push his feelings on what he thought. He said, no, we'll write those down, and Teresa, you're really not really supposed to be, you're opening up a can of worms. We'll just have people write instead of speak. And I supported you that day, Commissioner Walters. And so I hope that as we go, because I think going back to the research committee, seeing how the planning and zoning came up with some of these things were added to ordinance that came out of the blue that really was beyond what the research committee was getting into. I think some of those things should be looked at in due course, and I hope that you give some thought to those things of how we got to the problem here today, where everybody, including everybody last night, attended a meeting where 75 people were, about 3 from Winona and about a small handful from Wisconsin, but most of them were Houston County residents who were gathering to learn more about frac sand mining. So it was interesting, and I hope to share more with you. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, proceed with the meeting. Tess, you're up next.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
It is with very sad that we are asking you to accept the resignation of Tim Hunter, who's the Human Services Supervisor. And we say that because he has a wonderful opportunity ahead of him, but at the same time, we're sad to see him go. He's made many contributions to the county in his time that he's been with us. So we ask that you formally accept his resignation and thank him for the service that he's delivered to the residents of this county as well as to his own staff. And Amanda, would you like to comment on
Sure.
on
Yeah,
Tim
well,
and
Tim,
his time here?
yeah, Tim has been great, and I think we all would agree he's done a good job. He came to us at a time we needed to have somebody like him, and he's just done a lot of good work. He's worked hard. He has a really very good work ethic, and he's always trying to do things. He's very imaginative. He has great ideas. And he digs in. He just does a good job, so we will miss him. Mm-hmm.
And for those who are not familiar with the Human Service Supervisor does, this is the individual that provides leadership for the social workers in the county and the work that they do. So.
He'll be sadly missed. He was a tremendous asset from the first day he was here.
Yeah.
I agree.
And we had some very difficult challenges at the time he was hired, and he took those on in a very positive manner and provided very positive leadership in many, many ways.
Mm-hmm. Do we need a motion?
To accept his resignation and thank him for his service.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Justin? Second?
Second.
Second by Judy. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion is carried, regrettably.
And in the same vein, we're requesting at this time that we be allowed to immediately begin a search for a social service supervisor.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Judy,
I'll second it.
second by Teresa. Any discussion? All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion is carried.
And this is a recommendation to rescind the appointment of Kirby Fitzpatrick. I take responsibility for the premature appointment of her at my recommendation for that at last week's meeting. What I failed to do was an internal posting for the position with as provided by the union contract for 7 days. As you may recall, I instantly jumped to a previous search that we had, which was not appropriate, and that's been brought to my attention and duly noted by my office. So no reflection on Ms. Fitzpatrick at all. So we would like to, I respectfully request that be rescinded. It's no reflection on the department either. Like I said, it was my office failing to do that.
We could have helped you think of it.
Well,
We
that's
didn't.
okay.
So the 7 days would start today then, by rescinding the,
We rescind it, and then the next request is recommend approving an internal search posting,
okay.
because that needs to be then approved by the board. And I met with the union president this morning and provided him a copy of this as well, and so he's aware of it, and said that he felt that would be appropriate.
Okay.
Is there a motion?
Motion to rescind Kirby's appointment first, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Second, okay, Judy and Dana. Any discussion? All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion is carried.
Motion to internally advertise for the position.
Motion by Judy. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Justin. Any discussion? All of those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion is carried.
Thank you.
Okay, Human Services update.
We're all right there.
Can we,
Oh, we could certainly do
well,
that.
you guys get
We'll go get Tim.
Tim here, we'll have Sam, is that right?
Excuse me?
Sam could come up then.
Sure.
Motions.
Mine is really quick. The EDA board, as you know, currently has 2 vacancies, and we were recently, we approached Joe Tessing of La Crescent from Home Federal to sit on that board, and he has expressed interest. And so what would be, the next step would just be the Board of Commissioners to make a motion to appoint Joe Tessing to the EDA.
I'll make a motion to appoint Joe Tesson to the EDA.
Motion by Judy,
I'll second.
second by Dana. Any discussion? All of
No.
those in favor say aye. Oh, excuse me.
I was gonna say, does this make the board full now?
No,
or
we
do you
still
need one
have
more
one.
yet?
There'd be one more vacancy for a member at large.
Okay. All right.
Okay. All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion is carried.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sam. Now the Human Services update. So, Linda, we're ready for you.
Tim's on his way.
Okay.
Maybe we'll just get started and he'll be here when he gets here. The first thing I want to talk about actually is really a nice thing. I want to report about our estate recoveries for 2014. A couple of years ago, first of all, we were first in the state, and by that I mean we had the highest percentage of, well, dollars available. We had the highest percentage of collections of those dollars to collect a couple of years ago. Anyway, 2014 results came out, and we end up being number 7 in the state this year, and we are number 1 in our region. So our collections person is Jean Becker, and if you happen to see her, you might want to tell her thank you, because she's really good at what she does. She really likes it. And anyway, that's pretty much it about that. The other thing I want to talk about is I sent you all an email with an Excel spreadsheet in it, and it talked about our fund balances a little bit. And it also talked about budgets versus fund balances. Well, I did do a little revising on the this chart, the bar chart, and well, I guess it's not bars, is it? It's a graph. Anyway, so I do have a new one I want to give you. This one is a little bit different. Anyway, I'll give one to the press too. You guys want one? And I wouldn't print it out except that I've changed the values. Really, this just is a picture of what I was going to talk about, but mostly I wanted to tell you about some of the reasons we really don't have an accrued fund balance yet for 2014. A lot of things take place before we can get the true fund balance. Our cash fund balance is $1.465 million. However, we don't have any accruals in there. And the difference between accruals and cash, accruals record revenues when they occur, and they record expenses when they are incurred as well. What we have with the cash basis accounting, sometimes we end up recording the revenue, maybe 2 months later or 3 months later. Because of that, our books for 2014 are still open and probably will not be closed until way the end of March and until we calculate all the accruals for revenues and expenses. So we have all of our expenses almost all paid. I'm guessing there's a few hanging out there. We also have revenues that haven't been recorded. So then when we figure out the accrual balance, that's really your true cash balance. And the best picture you can get at the time of what your financial picture should be or is, or the reality of what it truly is. It's all about timing, really. A lot of things make up our accrual ending balance of our cash, and a lot of things affect our spending. So some of those would happen to be, and I know we've talked about this a little bit before, but our maintenance of effort. We are required by the state and the feds actually to spend minimum amounts of, but they're not all that minimal, but anyway, we do have to spend so much county money in order to gain and say yes to our federal and state funds that we receive. There are some really volatile things that affect our fund balance and really very unpredictable, and that's the unique thing about human services. We never know how many commitments we're going to have. We don't know how many foster kids are out there or we have, and we don't know how many corrections we're going to be paying for. The other thing that happens, random moments. We have random moments that are they're interesting. They can work in our favor and they can work against us. The social workers randomly answer these things that pop up on their computer and they have to tell what they're doing. Well, because of that, we get, every year, we get a little bit of money for refugee assistance. We do not have any refugees here, and we really haven't as long as I can remember, but we get refugee money. On the other side of that, the opposing example would be a few years back, I want to say about 2006 or 2007, the state did an audit of child welfare targeted case management hits and how counties were recording them. Well, we were recording ours correctly, and the bad thing about it was because of random moments, the state pulled back a bunch of money, and they randomly assigned, we got to pay back money, even if we recorded ours correctly. So at that time, I think we paid back a little over $75,000 over a 3-year time frame based on random moments, because that's really the only way the state could totally trace it back. And like I say, it works both ways. The other thing that's going on is DHS. If I would have broken this out monthly instead of yearly, you would see that our cash flows the last half of the year are always much more positive than in the front half of the year. And the only other thing I really want to talk about you also received one of these. If you check out the budget, in 2005 our budget was $1,323,541. In 2015 our budget, our county dollars that we ask for, is actually a lot less. It's $16,000 less than what it was in 2005. A lot of things have changed on how we spend our money, how we manage it, what we do. What we try and do is we try and get as much revenue in as we can by getting everything recorded the way it should be. So actually our budget now is $1,307,000 in 2015. It's all in how we're managing it and what we're looking at and how we're recording revenue. So that's a really good positive thing. The other thing I wanted to mention shortly, and it's kind of in the beginning stages, in 2016 we will fully have changed the way our adult mental health funding works for our CREST dollars. The CREST dollars we receive are a regional grant, and Olmsted County is the fiscal host. And actually right now, essentially what they do is divide up the funds in various ways. What that will change to is they will become the sole vendor of the CREST dollars. And 2015 will be considered sort of a transition year. We're going to keep things in place the way they are this year. However, in the meantime, we have to provide vendors. We're going to have to redesign a little bit how we spend our funds. They aren't really promising us a special allotment like they do right now. So it will be a change, and I can see it trending over the years to it's going to be a lot harder to spend flex dollars. It's going to be harder to spend them with CREST funding, I should say. It's going to be harder to serve the small mom and pop type shops that we have, because just we're going to have to provide more contracts. I think that I can see it going to larger projects. I don't know, what do you think about that, Tim? You have a view too?
Yeah, it's definitely the problem is going to be contracts. Right now, we have the ability to kind of pay those small mom and pop shops and then submit those to the state. Well, basically the fiscal host at this point in time doesn't want to deal with all those small contracts that are going to have to come through from all the surrounding counties. So they'd rather just deal with large vendors at this point in time. And so one of the things that I recommended when we were there is setting it up kind of a tiered system like we would have our disability waiver management kind of contracts go through, where we have a contract template. We fill that out with our small vendors that get sent up there. It's a lot of administrative time and stuff like that for the fiscal host at this point in time. So that's kind of why, like Linda's saying, that trend towards larger vendors being basically the sole providers for this area. Problem is we don't have a lot of them. We depend upon small time 245D or whatever else agencies to kind of take on that burden of service provision for the people that we work with. It's doable, but at this point in time, at least for the first couple of years, it's going to be larger contracts that are going to get kind of the money at this point in time through CREST. Where it impacts us are the small things, our guardianship fees, things like that, that are going to kind of take a hit for the people that provide one or two people services. And so we'll just kind of have to kind of adjust the way we use it, use a different pool of money first called CSP funds, which are adult mental health funds. They're just through a different pool of money. And so all grant funded, some different criteria on what you have to use, but it's manageable once you kind of make those adjustments and changes.
At this point, I think we're gonna send them our big whole vendor list, kind of whether they like it or not, it's kind of the way it is. But we're not gonna skimp on that at this point. So I think I'm pretty well done right now. But when you two are done, then I do have one more thing I want to say. So go ahead.
I guess along the same lines of CREST, what that does is changes the safety net meetings that have taken place monthly, which is providers, human services supervisors, consumers, and then some other parties that come together and discuss how we spend our CREST dollars at this point in time. That is going to become kind of more of a managing
type entity where they make some decisions based on that, and they take providers out of that decision-making pool. Actually, so that's actually going to change the way that looks for how we spend our CREST dollars and who makes those decisions. Continuing down the path of adult services, our min choices numbers are actually starting to rise a little bit, and we're actually having a few more assessments. A lot of them are coming in kind of that highly behavioral youth areas where parents are calling in saying, you know, I have a child that has either on the autism spectrum or something like that that has very high behaviors, not able to do daily tasks. And so we're starting to see some of those, I would say 4 or 5 just in the last couple of weeks, and you know, having those, just the assessment time alone being 3-4 hours, plus the time for prep, paperwork afterwards, and the follow-up appointments, it's, you know, kind of taking a little bit of a toll on on the disability workers. But the good news is we have 2 workers that have been here for about a year now, with Malika and Lisa, are going to be eligible to do the screenings and the training. So we'll get those 2 trained, and we should be doing pretty well in that department. Actually better than I think some of the surrounding counties that don't have as many assessors as we will once they're trained. And continuing with the adult side of things, we've had our second adult protection meeting. This is a chance to kind of come together and talk about how we operate for adult protection. Got law enforcement, we had another good turnout. We had a full room to kind of be able to kind of talk, bounce ideas off of each other, address issues of maybe mental health in the jails, or you know, other financial exploitation issues, chemical dependency policies, things like that that have come together. So that's been very successful, and so we've had our second one, and those will continue quarterly. In kind of the kids world, a couple things I'm going to touch upon. One is our use of our crisis respite that we developed about a year or so ago, getting utilized. We had about 6 kids going to crisis 72-hour holds in the last couple weeks. You know, so it's being utilized. So foster parents are kind of on call. They get the kids right away. You know, law enforcement's got a place to go. It's been working very smoothly. Foster parents have been unbelievably awesome. I mean, they've taken kids, obviously, weekends, late, you know, in the evenings, stuff like that. So they've been great. It's been going really well. I can't say enough good things about our foster parents in that regard. And did you talk about the adoption worker at all?
No,
Okay.
go ahead.
The other thing that's kind of been bounced around is a regional adoption worker, and kind of what's been looked at as a contract with Olmsted County kind of hosting a position, because they have a pretty solid foundation of how to do adoptions and the paperwork and things like that. Proposal came out, kind of divided up the surrounding regions with a pool of money that would kind of allow us to kind of use one of their workers to do some of the adoption stuff. Given that our numbers are so low in some discussion, it doesn't make a ton of sense at this point to go through with that. It would make more sense to get support staff, honestly, because the stuff that they're proposing that they'd be willing to do or able to do is stuff really support staff could do. You know, when you're looking at spending $10,000, roughly $9,000 on a position that you would kind of utilize so it's, you know, fairly it's inconsistently, given the small numbers that we do have of kids in care, and that we've already started working on some of the adoptions that we have to do. I mean, that's what that work's been done. You know, moving forward, it might make more sense to put that money and those resources into support staff that can just do the heavy, intensive paperwork stuff moving forward than it would be to contract with a larger county to do stuff like that. So that's kind of a regional discussion, just to keep that in the back of your mind of kind of where that's at right now.
Tim, when you talk support staff, are you talking like 67-day employee support staff? Are
No,
you talking part-time, or are you
I'm talking,
utilizing?
well, we have a part-time worker coming, so looking at taking some of that money and maybe putting it more towards more hours there. People that are in the office, honestly, sure, as opposed to somebody that's sitting over in Rochester that would be doing similar things. Because honestly, we can have them do things like social medical history, stuff like that. Everything but the case management part of it, you know, they can do as a support staff person that would support our social workers in getting that done. It's just time intensive. It's a lot. I mean, you have stacks of paperwork that need to get done. Well, instead of paying somebody else from Rochester to potentially do that, it might make more sense to put that into and invest something here in the county where we could do other things and multiple tasks as well. You know, just throwing that out there as an idea, because frankly, you know, having somebody an hour and 15 minutes away to kind of work with families here may not be the best option for Houston County. But it's on the table right now as kind of a regional project, so just keep it in the back of your mind. And the last thing is, I've been working and organizing kind of a training for the region, and you know, with Houston County kind of being attached to this, and we worked out a kind of a mental health conference to happen in April. It's centrally located. It's in St. Charles. We have 3 really good speakers and a foster panel at the end. It's free, and we opened it up. It's on a Saturday. Open it up to anybody. We want teachers, daycare providers. People just need to understand, and the focus really is understanding that trauma that kids go through. And it's going to make a kind of a transition from talking about the actual pediatric trauma itself, looking at bruises and fractures from the Mayo Clinic perspective, what they see, going into kind of what that young infant mental health piece looks like, and then the trauma of the system itself. And 3 really good speakers, Dr. Arnie Graff, Judy Woods, Nicole Miller, are all really experienced in this. And so if anybody has a chance to kind of come down, listen to it, it'd be worth your Saturday,
When is
honestly.
it?
When? It's April 11th at 9 a.m. It's absolutely free. And I wrote a small grant with UCare, and they paid for all of the snacks and room and speakers. And so they were really good to work with. The grant proposal didn't take me a whole lot of time, and they funded all of it. So thanks to them, to be honest with you. And so I'll pass up the flyer, and then that's all I have.
While he's doing that, I'll just get started. I just saw an email this morning. MNsure the deadline was supposed to be February 15th for people to enroll and purchase their health plans to avoid the tax penalty. It looks as though the state has extended that deadline until the 20th for anybody that's considered in line. They know there's quirks in the system yet, and so if people have gone through the identity proofing, created an account, or have started the process and either got kicked out or weren't able to complete it, they will have until the 20th to get that done. Along the MNsure line, they are making very slow progress. We just received directions on how to close cases voluntarily, how to close a case if somebody's moved out of state, and how to change an address within the state. All of these are multi-step directions and processes, and you have to do this before you do that, or we end up calling the state because it kind of makes the system not work very well. The state is currently working on other processes that we aren't able to do right now, so it's just been a lengthy process. Staff and myself, there's multiple emails daily on MNsure, what we can do, what we can't do, and even if they tell us to do something, sometimes it changes right away and we can't. So that's just kind of ever evolving with that. We also have coming up, I was just notified last week, we have our SNAP, which is the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, our 2015 management evaluation. What happens is the state comes down for a day and a half and basically looks through, meets with staff, looks through our case files. There's 9 different criteria that they look into. The biggest is customer service. Are we getting applications to people? Are we telling them how to apply, where to apply, setting benefit dates and things like that? Then they look at application processing, payment accuracy. Are we giving the correct benefits? Are we counting income correctly? Case and procedural error rates. Are we closing cases correctly as well? Then there's a population that it's called able-bodied adults without children. We had to stop working with those when we were in the recession, and now they've brought that back. It's very error-prone because there's a lot of different variables. There's a lot of exemptions that are out there, so they are wanting to review and make sure we're doing that accurately. Data security, are we locking down our workstations, passwords, that kind of thing. They look at civil rights, claim establishment, and then recipient integrity. So are we looking into fraud, following up on things like that? So it's quite a process. We've got probably 30 plus cases that we have to do internal case reviews on. We send those up to the state. If we don't do that, then it's considered a ding. There are some federal mandates that have come down. The workers now have to track all of their voicemails and return calls. The feds we have to be able to show them that we're returning calls within 24 to 48 hours. So we're trying to set up a process that is meaningful, so it's not just people writing down a bunch of information. So we're trying to come up with an Excel spreadsheet that'll hopefully track and give us a really good idea on that. And then we also have to do a formal complaint log that we send into the state. So if somebody has not a, hey, I didn't get my benefits yet, when we have 30 days to process, but the true complaints where people need follow-up. So we'll have a formal log that we'll send up into the state yearly for that. Once we get those results, which is actually the 25th of March, I'll make sure I share with you It's really a learning experience. So much changes with our programs. It's a time when they come down and let us know what we're doing right and what we need to improve on. And then Linda gave me a notice. The MFIP team, the family team, we have the MFIP Consolidated Fund. That money is used to help families that are on cash assistance try and transition into work. And that's a 2-year plan that we do. And we got notified that we did meet our work participation rate. So people that are on cash assistance need to be working for work, working with employment services, working that type of thing. So we did meet our work participation rate, which is awesome. It's one of those magical numbers that
It's hard to meet.
you never know. So we did that, and then they also look at our self-sufficiency or self-support index. So they track people who have gone off of MFIP to see how successful they are. So we met both of those criteria. So we don't have to do a performance improvement plan. If we failed in those, we do a plan, and then we could secure our additional funding, but we don't have to do that this year. And then in the child support, still there was a self-assessment that was done, and Houston County had no cases pulled, so I don't have anything to report on that. But we are still waiting on our data reliability audit, and the annual report hasn't come out yet. So hopefully soon, so I can share some more good news with you.
I just want to, I want to thank Tim for all of his good work and his imagination and his work ethic, and always trying to do the best thing for the staff and the clients, and he's been a really good team player. He is a good team player. He will continue to be that. I know he will. Anyway, thank you and good luck.
Thank you.
You will be missed.
Yes.
So
Thank you very
you go.
much.
It's a regional position, so I will be around.
Okay. You'll be-
So Tim, what is it? It's you kind of said it, about regional. So now you're going to be.
So basically, it's a program that hasn't started. It's called Crisis Response, or Mobile Crisis Response. And so it's a regional service that will, when people have children and adults, moments of crisis, suicidal ideations, things like that, we're setting up a centralized call number for the region for people to call one number. If they can't triage whatever the crisis is on the phone, we actually will have a service that would go out and do that safety planning and crisis intervention work and assessment work. It's as a diversion to law enforcement, inpatient clinics, things like that at this point in time. So it's not up and running yet. If it's not, it's my fault now. But yeah, and so that's kind of what it is.
Cool. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Free to go.
Thank you.
Thank you much.
Thank you.
Rick, and your CP rail delineation plan.
I did send in your packet a notice. The TEP panel did meet. It's on a wetland delineation, the same, but this one being in the city of La Crescent. I did send this also down to La Crescent, city also giving them notice. What they're planning on doing is there's some work on the switches and little upgrades in there. It's within the floodplain and the wetland area. They did the delineations the same way they did the ones in Brownsville. And the TEP panel, after reviewing it, looking at it, we agreed with their delineations to this point. So what we are doing here is bringing this to the board's attention, the same as we did the last one. And then if we can get the board's approval, then this would go out for public notice, and also the same as the other one. So,
I'm assuming this is to change like the switches to go to the new side tracks, or what's the?
it's the one that goes to La Crosse,
Yeah.
and then the other one, there's another switch there that you can stay on the Minnesota side.
Yep.
Some of those do need upgrading, and there's improvements that they're making there. So, and that's all floodplain down there and wetland areas. They really, now that the delineations are agreed upon, well, then they'll go back in and actually zero in on what they're going to do and the amount of wetlands within that. And if they can be avoided, that's what they do. If they can't, well, then they need to replace that. So, and that will be coming, a further detail will be coming down. And they're doing a lot of work on this side. I got just another application there, just to let you know too, but the TEP panel hasn't been actually, had a chance to look at it. It's more towards Brownsville, replacing a bridge project there too. So, and we're working with the CP Rail on that. But that will be coming later date.
Why all the activity all of a sudden down that area on the railroad?
Well, there's a lot
of project going on over there.
Well, there's a lot of trains go up and down there too.
That stuff going on Miller Corner, is that part of that siding that we voted on last time?
Yeah.
Bridge replacement.
Yeah.
It was a 2-mile siding, right?
No. That was a.
That was farther down.
Yeah. You
That's what I
approved
thought.
what's going on in the river right there, where 26 Junction there. That was done.
Down by that old casino, I remember that.
Yeah, that was done.
But on the Miller Corner is not an extension of that, it's a separate project?
Yes.
That's just the bridge
Yeah.
project there.
Right.
I read that.
Okay.
So what do you need from us, a motion?
A motion to approve or agree with the TEP panel's findings that I think you've seen. This is just on the delineations now.
Okay.
So,
I'll make
on
the
the
motion.
boundaries.
Motion by Judy. There's a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Teresa. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion is carried.
Now, what I mean by TEP panel, that involves Corps of Engineers, DNR, Houston County. Like I said, the city has, they're put on notice, so.
Do you know, Rick, is all the strikes and stuff going on with CP Rail affecting anything as far as down here getting work done, you know? Shouldn't be
It
there.
didn't seem to be. I mean, they're busy on the.
2 separate unions.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, Rick.
Thank you.
Okay, the consent agenda. Tons delivered to Excel, correspondence regarding payroll, Section 8 vouchers by county report. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Motion by Justin, second.
I'll second.
Second by Teresa. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion is carried. And unfinished business, I think we'll probably be delving into frac sand deeper tomorrow. Highway Department building, we've got a meeting this afternoon, 1:30. And courthouse, historic jail. I don't think there's a lot to report at this point, but it's on the radar.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way. Commissioner reports. Dana, would you lead us off?
Okay, as always. Not a busy week meeting-wise, but an awful busy week and phone calls and comments and what tomorrow's meeting. And I appreciate all the comments and phone calls I've received, and I'll look forward to tomorrow and voting on. I don't think we're going to vote, right?
That's the plan.
Yeah. Are we going to talk today about? I know there's a question during comment about how many minutes you're allowed to speak and where we're going to have
Yes. Yep. When we get down to the, I think down here in
That's
discussion
still
items.
coming?
Yeah. Let's
Okay,
talk
I'll
about
just-
it.
yeah.
Definitely.
Because that was a question during the public.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
Okay. Thank you. Teresa.
I had workforce development meeting last Thursday and also an EMS. And EMS is working hard to have legislation action to move them from underneath the, well, it used to be a board up there where they did all the inspections for ambulances and they did our grant writing because it's all run by grants. And they are now refusing to do it because they're too busy. So we're looking to move EMS underneath the Department of Health, under rural health, and then they could do our grant writing. Because EMS really runs only on grants and seatbelt funds. Now, our local one, where there's 11 counties in this, and in our region, there's 7 regions in the state, our region also has training sessions where they make some money because they have workshops which they charge for. And so we have a little more income, but most of the regions only have the seatbelt or the grants, state grants. So everybody needs to have this, have us contact our legislators to support moving it under the Department of Health, so we have somebody to get us these grants. So, fiscal agent, basically. So that was a very interesting meeting. And then workforce development, as you heard from Karen, we are doing well in this county. They really help our people find jobs or education to help them get jobs. So that's been real good for Houston County there. Well worth our time and money.
Good.
I also, I got a lot of calls and emails, and as I was in the hospital for 3 days, my answering machine was totally locked up. In fact, the nursing home couldn't even get hold of me to let me know my dad had fallen, because it was, and I did get a lot of emails. I tried to return answers to things that I could, but I was overwhelmed. I've been very sick.
Yeah.
Get well.
Justin.
Went to the presentation last night in La Crescent, which was very good. I appreciate everybody for putting that together. And obviously, we got the Highway Committee today. Lots of emails and phone calls. It's been a very one-sided, I guess, argument on that. So I appreciate everybody's emails and phone calls, and look forward to everything that transpires tomorrow.
Thank you.
Steve and I went to a really good training on making solid land use decisions on Friday, put on by Scott Anderson and Jay Squires, and it was really good. If this comes up again, I'd encourage everyone to attend it. It's a lot of knowledge and a lot of question-answer type of things. So I don't know, I felt like it was really worthwhile going there.
Is that the one that was in Mankato?
Yes.
Yeah.
Did planning commission go to it? Or?
Yeah, Glenn, Dan, Kent Holm.
Bob went. And
Terry Rosendahl.
Terry.
Yeah, we had a couple of cars full.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Ed Holman, Ray Graff.
It was a good session. Anything more?
No, I think
Yeah,
that's
and that's what I had too. I had the planning and zoning training, by Scott and Jay, and I've had a lot of phone calls, emails, and I apologize. My recorder went kaput. It just doesn't. It's not working. I have to replace it, I guess. And that's what I have. Next up, approved claims, human services, and license center disbursements. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to approve claims. Human
Motion by
services
Dana.
license.
Second? Is there a second?
Second.
By Judy. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. And we need to set a date for the Board of Equalization. And you're suggesting June 15th at 6 for an hour.
Yes.
That's too far out there for me, but I can probably make it work. Any discussion on that?
That's a Monday night?
Correct.
Monday at 6 to 7. You need a motion for
on
that?
That'd be good.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to have the Board of Equalization on Monday, June 15th at 6.
Motion by Teresa. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Justin. All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion is carried. And let's see. And just, okay, for discussion. Now, regarding tomorrow's meeting, I guess my thinking was 3 minutes is a good time.
I agree.
I like that idea. Ken, I like your idea of line up rather than sign up.
I agree.
Do we need to have names? I mean,
That's
should we have
one
people?
nice thing about the sign-up.
Have people, right, have people sign up. They can still sign up, but line up. Just have them line up. I think that sounds good. If it's a little out of order, I guess,
As long as we hear from everybody.
as long as we hear from everybody. Correct, exactly. Yeah.
You could have people sign up after they speak. have
Well-
a table and a tablet,
Mhm.
just sign up.
Could
There's
we
usually
have
enough milling around ahead of time that
Or could we have them sign up on a podium as they speak?
could do that.
You know,
yeah.
like when they come to speak,
Oh,
just sign your
sure.
name that you spoke, and then,
Mhm.
you know, then we have it
I think
in
that could
order
slow
for
it down, though. I think it would be a better,
Or if they just say their name, we can take
Yeah.
down who they are too, you know?
Mhm.
Venue-wise,
kind of hard to change it. I agree, it probably should be over there.
put a sign
We
on
had
the
I would
door
do
and
that.
about
start
that
10 minutes
too,
Yeah.
but it's already posted.
Yeah, I
Where
think-
it
think
is.
we need to stay.
What's it take to move it?
You
I
want
mean,
videotape?
Oops, sorry.
I think that we should.
we typically do. I mean, this is gonna be standing room only here, you know.
Yeah, it will be.
Yeah.
Well, we can have Andy bring over the handheld video camera that we had before,
Mhm.
set up the mics and just post it on the door and go 10 minutes later to allow for people to come over.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that's a
like
good
the
idea.
idea of having them sign up before,
I do too.
because then we don't have so much congestion. Just sign up and then they
Yeah.
can line up.
I think that would slow the process. You know, Ken's got a great idea as far as, you know, line up, you know, you step up and you speak.
Yeah.
And
Well,
if they've
so
already
just have
signed
3
up,
people in the chute ready to go.
yeah, and people have already signed up,
Okay, there is an LAGT meeting over at the CJC tomorrow, 8 to 5.
8 to 5, all day.
Really?
Oh, that's one of
Just
the
shot
first
that.
trainings.
Oh, we don't have that room.
Okay.
Well, we'll just make
Can I,
do.
can I make a comment too about signing up? There were people that came to one of those P&Z hearings that by the time they got there, the people offering the sign-up sheet had already gone into the meeting
Yeah.
and they couldn't speak.
That's another good point too, as far as if we do have, well, I think if you just allow people to come and speak, we don't have to worry about it. But
Yeah.
wherever that sign-up sheet is, make sure it stays out the whole time.
Yeah.
too, because there's gonna be people that I'm sure are gonna show up late or
And maybe have
can't
somebody.
quite make it, so.
Yeah. We could probably have somebody man it.
Yeah.
Make sure.
And just leave it there
Yeah.
the whole time, but then if people wanna come up and speak, just come up.
Bring them in, yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
Yep.
Try to be as accommodating as we possibly can.
Yep.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Appreciate that.
Is there any other discussion?
Last thing is, I guess, I would just bring up that I don't think we should be limiting ourselves to not allowing or not intending on a vote tomorrow. I think it's a good time to do that when you have a captive audience.
Mhm.
I guess my thoughts are you've got everybody there, you're listening to everybody, there's nothing new that we're gonna learn in a week or two after that we couldn't vote then. I guess personally, I'd rather see a vote take place when the people are present, I mean, when it's fresh in our minds and we have instead of waiting another 2 weeks and having to drag this out any longer. So I would encourage that we at least allow the possibility if we feel comfortable at that time. And if we don't feel comfortable and we want to wait, we can, but I wouldn't.
Discuss it
I wouldn't
anyway.
just say it's off the table.
Yeah, Sam, what are your thoughts on that?
Again, if it was a situation that, just take out of the picture what you're really discussing, some issue came up, and you have to make a decision after somebody referred it up to you. If it was something like a peddler's ordinance or something like that, was routine, but something like this where I'm gonna have to make findings on it. I started that process. The historical stuff is easy enough because there's records and stuff, and I've been able to obtain that. But if you're gonna add language or change something or do anything to that, if you're just not gonna adopt if you're gonna adopt what the planning commission does, then I have sort of a roadmap of where we're gonna go, and I know how the findings have to be made. But if something's gonna come out that's different here, it would be nice to have a little bit of time to continue to work on the conclusions of law that have to be done. That said, I suppose you could do it on the 18th, but again, I'd have to have a motion that we'd have to have findings, to have findings done in a week or two.
Yeah, and I don't think it would be intended that it would be just run through right away. It'd be, you'd have, we talked about that last week, being able to give you a week for findings, but, if there's changes or something we feel that are appropriate, I don't think that I would limit not having discussion or voting on amending or changing, final approval of the document, like you said, Sam can get the legal end of it tied up and stuff, and you can officially adopt it, but I wouldn't say, I guess I wouldn't feel comfortable going into this and just having a public hearing and say, hey, thanks for coming, we're done. It'd be nice to have some time to for us to discuss while it's still fresh in our head if there's.
Oh, I definitely
any-
want discussion.
Yeah, yeah.
You know.
So I guess that's
And I
my
think there
big
could be
thing is-
some, melding of this
Right.
ordinance.
Yeah, so I guess I just don't want it to be thought of that we're gonna hold a public hearing as soon as the last person's done speaking, we're all going
Mhm.
home. I'd like to leave some option to discuss
Yeah.
between the board and.
I definitely
So
would.
if that's.
Yeah,
I'm fine
that
with
I would prefer.
Okay.
Why don't you discuss it in front of us?
That's what we're talking about.
That's what we're talking, yeah.
That's what we wanna do.
Right here.
Yep. Anything else?
Mr. Chairman, are we, when the people speak, is this gonna be like a regular public comment? Are we allowed to interact, ask questions back, or are we, is it
What are
gonna be
your
like a
thoughts?
regular public comment?
I think in some instances it may be something we need to do.
If we-
Yeah, and I
Just
think.
to clarify things.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we just have to be cognizant that, somebody might say something that we might want to comment on immediately or
Right.
question or something, so I would like to allow that as a possibility.
Yeah. I
With
would
that,
too.
I would say there's only going to be caution. I don't want it to get into a dragged out argument for 15
Right.
minutes and then all of a
No
sudden
arguments.
Yeah.
every person's 15 minutes and then we're here
Mhm.
till midnight. So I think back and forth dialect is
Yes.
good and leave it open. Just be
Which-
cognizant. If it's going to get too lengthy,
Yeah.
let's go to the next person. We'll come back and revisit it when everybody's done, just to give everybody.
Limit
an
ourselves to
opportunity.
a couple of minutes, in other words.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that works.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Mhm.
Kind of goes both ways, I guess.
Yes. But I gotta change the time, change my clock or my phone chime. What do you guys?
Yeah.
Is there anything gonna be done about personal tax?
Well, I don't think it should be allowed.
No.
It's not allowed here, it's not gonna be allowed
That's in
then,
our
so.
policy.
Mhm.
Steve,
Hmm?
can I just suggest, having been to a lot of meetings, one of the ways that I've seen used, mostly in political conventions, but they're often heated too, is when you have a staff person, when you get within 30 seconds of the time limit, they
let 'em
hold
run.
up a yellow slip, and when you
Oh,
hit
yeah.
the time limit,
That's
That would be
yeah, it
fun,
is.
too, just to give you some idea.
Heads up.
That's you're done.
Yeah.
it's not as disrupting to the whole room and to the person as, some staff.
I know my phone's annoying. I know it is. I know it. I'm sorry.
It's loud.
Yeah.
We could still have
Yeah.
that, but give them 30 seconds.
And it probably won't work.
It's okay.
The idea is to shut you
Well,
off.
minor thing.
Let me see if I can find,
We do want to cut it off at 3.
Yeah.
Or we-
People can see a piece of paper.
Yes.
Speaking, that's the advantage.
We'll get something. We'll get something.
I guess, yeah, I mean, maybe this is a good time too, I know the board meeting's over, but
Mhm.
if there's any other quick questions, just to get this, anybody else got any suggestions or something, just to make sure we're all on the same page here and proceed?
Not right off. I think we hit it. You've got something?
Yeah, I was just kind of, you're gonna vote, possibly vote, was that advertised in the notice?
No.
Yeah, well, technically, it's an open public board meeting. You have to have an open meeting. This is considered a special meeting, and it's a special meeting to hold a public hearing, so it's technically a board meeting. Therefore, a vote can take place. I don't know that we're talking about actually voting to enact it, but more or less voting on if there's anything that we feel we need to change in the language or clarify in the language would be more of the votes that would probably take place. We'll have Sam review everything and then come back after you have the official written legal language and adopt it as a board.
I think we'll get a consensus.
What would be the point
feeling.
of voting if it's not official?
Well, if I wanted to vote and say I
sure.
wanted to change this from may to shall, we'd have to vote on that to change that deal. That's not voting on the ordinance, that's voting on changing or adopting some language that's within the document itself. So there's kind of two different votes going on. So the official total vote to implement it, we may have to wait, like we were talking with Sam, to have the legal wording and language and findings of fact to implement it. But if there's some changes or something that the board feels is appropriate, as a board, we'd have to vote on that, so.
Is that gonna take 4/5?
No, that does not take 4/5. That's a majority. Supermajority is only to enact, or adopt, or to alter an already existing ordinance. Looked into it many times.
Is that right, Sam? I don't know if that's accurate.
I'm pretty sure that, and I guess, and that's, there's a big gray area, and I appreciate bringing that up, Eric. There's a gray area. I have not found any documentation that says a planning commission overrides the board of commissioners as an elected official. So if the planning commission puts something forward, and the board of commissioners has to have a supermajority to override a recommendation from a planning commission, I've yet to find any legal documentation that supports that they override the board of commissioners. So that I would definitely debate that that's there. It's never happened that way in the past, and we've got a lot of precedents that's set forward that that has not been the case. In fact, there was a vote in 2013 that it was not that way. So there has been some precedence already there. So that's why I say there's already documentation precedence to show that no, a supermajority is only needed when you're going to enact, change, or alter an already existing ordinance or adopt a new one. So that's basically the findings that I found. So and I'd gladly debate that with somebody, but I haven't found anything to show on the contrary to that. So.
Kelly.
I've read that statute quite a few times, and I think what it says is the board may adopt a recommendation in such form as it sees fit. That gives the board broad authority. So when they're deciding upon what form they see as fit, that would not take a supermajority. But when they are voting on the actual amendment that they've figured out, when you're amending the ordinance, yes, that requires a supermajority. But you can decide on what you want to see in that amendment.
That's right.
During your discussion and with whatever sort of vote you feel you need.
Right.
Sam, can we get a legal opinion from you on that by tomorrow?
Well, and I think I may have answered this in the past, but I'll check this. The question again is, do you need a supermajority to do a text amendment?
Do you need a supermajority to amend a recommendation from the Planning Commission is what the question is.
But then what are you amending? Are you amending the whole ordinance, or are you amending the text of the sentence?
Well, a text of the sentence.
That would be the question then. Do you need a supermajority to do a text amendment as opposed to change it from?
Or adding an amendment, possibly, even.
And that's the issue, and I have checked the emails, I think I responded to that question, but my understanding is if that's the question, I can probably get you an answer to that here before the end of the day.
And it's I guess, that's where that gray area kind of comes into, because the board directed the study committee to come up with the ordinance, yet the planning commission
That was the
altered
first
it,
step.
altered it and changed it without them having a supermajority, so then why would the board have to have a supermajority? So I guess that's maybe where the clarification is. Is it a text, or is it an ordinance? If it's a text where you say, I want to add this sentence, or I want to delete this sentence, it wouldn't take a supermajority.
And I guess, so you're saying that the issue then is the planning commission made a change to what the study committee made?
Correct.
Well, yeah, I don't think the study committee had any binding authority on anyone.
Well, it was a directive. What we're saying is it's a directive from the Board of Commissioners for them to write it. So then the Planning Commission didn't have that directive, so they changed it. Okay, but now the Board of Commissioners has to have a supermajority to change a recommendation of a non-legally binding board such as the Planning and Zoning?
The question again then is if it's a text amendment as opposed to a whole new, how far you're going to alter the commission's recommendation.
Right.
That's the issue that you get into. And like I said, I think you can answer.
And like, I think we're on the same page too. If it's a text amendment where it's like in this sentence it should say this versus this, or we change this language to say this, is different than saying we want to have an entirely new ordinance or something like that.
But conversely, one sentence can change a whole document.
Just a minute. Yvonne had her hand up.
Does this discussion mean that in order to pass this proposed amendment or ordinance, you need 4 out of 5?
Yeah, you need a supermajority. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Well, that's never going to happen.
Have some faith.
Yeah.
Are you saying the vote is already?
Yeah.
Robin.
You can decide for.
Hold on, Yvonne.
What I'm hearing, and I want some clarification from Sam, I think, is that you're saying that the board has to accept verbatim what the planning commission said, recommendation. It's just a recommendation, right? And what I'm understanding you say is that they need 4/5 to overturn a recommendation by an appointed board. That just doesn't make any sense to me at all.
That's what's on the
That's
thing
what-
to vote.
That's what the ordinance.
The agenda to vote is on the ordinance that was passed by the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Right, but what I'm saying is that they have the authority then to vote against it.
Right, and the board does have the discretion
They
to
don't
change or
have to
alter.
accept any recommendation.
Well, hold on, let's not get into 2 minutes of an argument. It's nice to have good discussion, and I'm glad we
I'm
are.
not arguing.
But, yeah, but I mean, just crosstalk and
Yeah,
stuff.
Ken.
There's some confusion coming up here because you're confusing amending the ordinance, the proposal from the planning commission with final passage. I would suggest that you use those terms separately. Final passage of whatever comes out of this takes 4/5. I think we can all agree on that.
Mhm.
Anytime the board wants to change a proposed ordinance or part of an ordinance or an amendment, it takes 3/5. And we're going to have our attorney send Sam a brief he did on this a while ago. I'll send it this afternoon. There's no doubt, you look at the case law, and there's a case law that just happened in 2012, exactly the situation you're talking about here, Sam. So I hope you'll read that before you write a brief of your own. There's no doubt the board only needs 3/5, a regular majority, to change the wording of the planning commission's recommendation. We'll send that to all of you this afternoon.
And we can get a clarification, maybe Sam, if you bring that tomorrow or something like that, just to clarify.
Yeah.
Other than that,
Is there any other business to come before this board?
motion to adjourn.
How about
Well,
recess?
actually, to
Let's
recess.
do a
We got-
recess. Yeah,
we
do a
got
recess.
Other stuff, yeah,
Yeah.
recess. I don't know, 10 minutes? Do you guys
Yeah.
will break?
I don't,
Really?
yeah.
Quickly, I just want to thank the Board of Commissioners for allowing this discussion.
Yeah.
Oh, you're welcome.
You're welcome.
No trouble.
What happens after the recess? That we can't be part of?
Strategic planning. It's boring as you wouldn't believe it.